Hello everyone, again Frank DiMora here with the End Times Research Ministry, the author of the book The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, which you can get today for free by going over to my website that you see below. Now almost on a daily basis now I'm giving you updates about either the birds, the fish, or the animals dying. And I'm also giving you the reasons or the mysteriousness of why the birds, the beasts, and the fishes are dying as well. And of course, if you're new to prophecy, you need to know that Hosea chapter 4, verse 3, which is found in the Old Testament, talks about how the birds, the fish, and the animals are going to be dying. These are the signs of the last days, and if you've been watching the news, hopefully you've noticed that there's been a great increase in the numbers of birds, fish, and animals that have been dying off in mass numbers. Now, my last video that I gave to you, I ended up with August the 31st, giving you the updates there. Now I'm going to show you today's news that came out September the 1st of 2015. Now this article that came out on August the 25th is one that I missed that I wanted to cover it now because it's still into effect as of September the 1st of 2015. A giant glob of deadly algae is floating off the west coast. One of the things that I show often is the red tides that have been coming in and killing off the fish, these algae blooms that look like blood. And according to this article, we have a huge one that is in the Pacific Ocean right now. It says, from the air, the Pacific algae bloom doesn't look like much of a threat. A whispery brownish stream snaking up along the west coast, but it's causing amnesia in birds, deadly seizures in sea lions, and a crippling decline in the west coast shellfish industry. So it's affecting the sea life without a question. It goes on, here's what you need to know about it. From what this bloom has to do with the drought to why these toxins could be a real threat to the homeless, so not only affecting sea life, but humans as well. Now what's causing it? Culprits are single-celled plant-like organisms called pseudonuclei, a subset of thousands of species of algae that produce more than 50% of the world's oxygen through photosynthesis. They're a hardy variety usually found in cool, shallow oceans where they survive on light and dissolved nutrients including zeolites, nutrites, and phosphates. They're sort of like the dandelions of the sea, says Verna Trainer, who manages the Marine Biotoxin Program at the Northwest Fisheries Science Center in Seattle. They're always there in some low numbers, just waiting for nutrients to be resupplied to the ocean's surface. In most years, blooms in the eastern Pacific are contained near hotspots that dot the west coast, relatively shallow and sheltered places like California's Monterey Bay or the Channel Island. They usually flare up in April or May as trade winds cycle nutrient-rich waters from offshore depths to the coast in a process called upwelling, but they fade after only a few weeks. Why is it sticking around so long? The jury is still out, but scientists are beginning to get a closer idea. These past few years have been incredibly weird. In the North Pacific Ocean, says Nate Montoya, a research scientist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Southwest Fisheries Science Center in Santa Cruz. He points to the same ridiculous resurgent ridge of the high pressure that's been causing the historic drought in the western United States. This pressure also resulted in a pool of exceptionally warm water in the Pacific known as the blob, with little weather to disperse it. Those conditions, along with prevailing winds and colder currents that ferry nutrients back to the coast, seem to be supplying the algae with a seemingly endless feast. That makes the source of this bloom different from its cousin in the Gulf of Mexico, where fertilizers flowing from as far as Iowa are feeding a zone of algae that is large as New Jersey. We're seeing them in relatively pristine waters of the U.S. West Coast, Trainer explains. though she adds runoff and sewage discharge may be playing some role in the blooms off Southern California. So just how big is this thing? Bigger than researchers have ever seen. Apache Stream that stretches from Southern California up along the Alaskan coast. The hotspot blooms that appear each spring are merging for the first time, Trainer explains. Now, though the combined mass has ebbed and flowed over the past 4 months, it hasn't let up. Her team finds algae each time they journey out to sea, with no signs of abatement soon. And it's also unusually potent. These are the highest levels of toxicity we've ever seen, says Rafael Cadella, a professor of ocean scientist at the University of California, Santa Cruz. It's a truly extraordinary phenomenon. Now here in this article they show you where this bloom is. It says levels of chlorophyll viewed from space indicate where algae is present in the waters of the Pacific. And this is from the NOAA. And you can see here's the Gulf of Alaska. It's the green heavy all the way down. So this is a massive problem that's right now on the West Coast. Now this where it comes in very important when it's concerning the sea creatures. It says, how deadly are these dandelions? The algae produce a compound called domonic acids, the type of amino acid that leads to the condition commonly known as amnesic shellfish poisoning in humans. Shellfish and some small fish, like sardines and anchovies, feed on the algae and concentrate the toxin in their flesh. When the animals further up the food chain, like birds, eat those fish and shellfish, the domonic acid seeps into the bloodstream and eventually the brain, where it attacks cells in the hippocampus, the brain's command center for memory and learning. The result, amnesia-stricken birds that will repeatedly fly into windows, and sea lions that writhe on the shore, plagued by seizures. Both are symptoms of rapidly firing neutrons in the hippocampus, which will eventually burn out and kill the animal. And this is why we're seeing so many of these animals dead as of late. Now, beaches have been littered with dead fish, birds, and sea lions up and down the Pacific coast since May, all of the way up to Alaska, where the NOAA is investigating the deaths of fin whales in connection with the toxin. On this video, it shows you an example of what happens to a sea lion when they get these toxins into their system. There won't be any sound with this, but as you can see, he's definitely suffering from this problem. Well, this is the part that I found interesting also, and it talks about these red tides that I've been showing you about, that Jesus talks about in the book of Revelation when he says that the seas will turn blood-like. And of course, these red tides, that's exactly what it does. It says, beginning right here, still, even if the coast sees some relief from the algae for the next few years, big changes can be expected in the coming decades as oceans warm worldwide. And again, in the book of Revelation, we see intense heat coming, so we know what's going to happen. The world is going to continue to warm up, and it's going to affect the water that's going on. That could produce more hospitable conditions for algae and lead to different ecological threats, like red tides and dead zones in the Pacific. I think this is a window into the future, Trainer says. We can expect more of this to come. And, of course, you can quote Mark 13:8, the birth pangs of the last days, because that's exactly what Trainer is showing us, the conditions in the water and the temperatures that they're predicting to come. So without a question, this deadly blob, this algae bloom, is going to continue to play havoc in the oceans for some time to come.